In the quiet village of Kutta, where the moonlight spilled like milk over red earth, and baobab trees whispered secrets into the night, there was a drum no one dared to touch. It sat in the shrine at the edge of the village, carved from sacred Iroko wood and stretched tight with the hide of a leopard, so the elders said. No one had played it in over 60 years. Not since the night the ground cracked open and swallowed an entire hut during the Festival of Spirits. The children called it Aja Oku, the ghost drum, but 17-year-old Nia didn't believe in ghost stories. She was headstrong, curious, and always asking questions the elders refused to answer. Don't touch what carries the dead, her grandmother warned. Her eyes clouded with fear and memory, but Nia only laughed. It's just a drum, Mama. Wood and skin. What can it do? Her grandmother didn't smile. It calls, and when it calls, the dead answer. Every year, during the harvest moon, the villagers celebrated with music, dancing, and offerings to the ancestors. But the ghost drum, Aja Oku, was always left untouched, covered with palm leaves and sealed with cowrie shells. It was a symbol of power, fear, and silence. This year, Nia had a plan. She wanted to prove that there was nothing sacred about silence. That fear was a cage passed down like old clothes. And more than anything, she wanted to dance. She had watched the dancers every year, feet like fire, hips like waves, arms painting stories in the air. But young girls weren't allowed to dance at the shrine, not unless chosen. So, Nia chose herself. The night before the festival, when the village slept and the fires burned low, Nia crept out of her mother's hut. She wrapped her waist in red beads and charcoal streaked her face like the dancers of old. Her feet were bare, her heart loud. The air was thick with silence. As she entered the shrine, her shadow danced across the walls like it already knew the steps. And there it was, the drum, tall, ancient, waiting. She stood in front of it, her breath trembling, her fingers twitching. It's just a drum, she whispered. Then she struck it, once. The sound echoed like thunder in a cave. Deep, hollow, hungry. The wind outside stopped. The trees seemed to hold their breath. Then came the second beat. This one faster, braver, then another and another. Nia's body began to move. The rhythm took her, wrapped around her like smoke. Her hips rolled, her feet pounded, her eyes closed. She danced as if something ancient had crawled into her blood. But she didn't see the shrine shadows grow darker. She didn't hear the faint voices in the wind. She didn't feel the chill that wasn't part of the night air. She didn't know that she was no longer dancing alone. The drum kept beating, but Nia's hands were still. Her fingers had fallen limp by her sides, yet the rhythm throbbed through the shrine, low, steady, and growing faster. She blinked, her body frozen mid-step. The drum was playing itself. Behind her, something shifted. She turned slowly. The air was no longer still. A cold breeze slid across her skin like fingers dipped in ice water. The palm leaves at the shrine's entrance fluttered without wind. The cowrie shells on the walls rattled like bones in a gourd. Then she heard it, footsteps. Not one, many. She backed away from the drum, her breath caught in her chest. Her ears strained, heart pounding in time with the ghost rhythm. And then, from the shadows, they emerged. Figures, dozens of them. Faint at first, like heat waves or smoke. Men and women in tattered wraps, with sunken eyes and skin the color of ash. Some had broken limbs, still twisted at wrong angles. Others dragged behind them chains of rust and bone. Their eyes glowed, not red, not white, empty. Nia stumbled backward, her heel catching on a stone. She fell hard, scraping her elbow, but she didn't feel the pain. Her eyes were locked on the dancers. Because that's what they were doing, dancing. Their feet moved with impossible precision, arms slicing through the air, heads jerking with the beat of the drum. But there was no joy, no fire in their rhythm, only a haunting grace, as if each movement was rehearsed by centuries of sorrow. Naya crawled backward, her body trembling. The shadows danced closer. One of them stopped just inches from her. It was a woman, tall and regal, wrapped in a faded blue kente cloth. Her face was cracked down the center, like a mask broken long ago. She tilted her head, and when she spoke, her voice came from a place beneath the earth. "You heard our song. Now you must learn our dance." Nia shook her head violently, trying to scramble to her feet. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know." The woman raised her arm and pointed to the drum. "You woke it. You opened the door. The dead do not forget." Suddenly, hands reached out from every direction, cold, dry, and strong. They didn't pull her, they danced with her. They lifted her like a puppet on strings. Her legs moved without her will, her arms twisted in patterns she didn't recognize. The rhythm filled her skull like a scream trapped inside bone. She wanted to stop. She couldn't. In the distance, a rooster cried, a sharp note in the darkness. The figures hissed, recoiling. One by one they faded, melting into shadow as dawn approached. The drum silenced itself. Nia collapsed. She gasped for air, drenched in sweat and dirt, limbs shaking like leaves in a storm. When she opened her eyes, she was alone. Almost. Lying beside her, half buried in the shrine's red soil, was a footprint. A bare footprint. Too large, too deep, and it was still warm. By morning, the shrine was silent again, but something had changed. Nia limped back into the village just before the sun rose, covered in dust, her feet bruised, and her eyes wide with the weight of what she'd seen. She didn't speak. She didn't eat. She just stared. The villagers noticed. Her mother tried to brush her hair. Nia flinched. The children invited her to the morning dances. She sat with her arms wrapped tightly around her knees, rocking, whispering to herself. It wasn't long before whispers followed her wherever she went. "She's been touched," said one. "She walked where only the ancestors tread," said another. The elders called a meeting. Under the great baobab, they formed a circle and sat in silence, waiting for Nia to speak. But she couldn't. She could still hear the drum in her head, still feel the weightless control, the way her limbs moved without command. And sometimes, in the corners of her eyes, she still saw them, the dancers from beyond the grave, waiting. That night, Nia dreamed of ash and teeth. She awoke with soil in her hands and drumbeats in her chest. Her grandmother wept quietly in the next room. "She has brought them back," she whispered, "and they do not forget." The first sign came with the dogs. Every dog in Kuta stopped barking. They sat at the edge of the village, eyes fixed on the forest, ears perked, tails stiff, silent, waiting. Then came the footprints, dozens leading from the shrine into the village square. Too large for children, too light for men. No one admitted to walking there. By the third night, the air grew colder, even though the season was warm. Fires struggled to stay lit. Drums wouldn't hold rhythm. Even the birds flew wider circles above Kuta, as if avoiding something they couldn't see. And then, the dreams began. Every villager, young or old, woke in the middle of the night, sweating and breathless. They described the same thing, dancing figures with hollow eyes circling their huts, whispering names that hadn't been spoken in decades. Nia's name, the elders knew. They gathered again beneath the baobab, but this time they didn't ask questions. They chanted. Long forgotten words were pulled from sacred memory. Protective symbols were drawn in ash and blood, but none of it held, because what Nia had awakened wasn't just spirits, it was a hunger, and it had waited too long in silence. That night, the drums began again, but no hands played them. And from the shadows around the village, they came, the dancers, moving in perfect rhythm, faces familiar, faces long buried, and they were smiling. The dancers came with the mist, gliding, not walking, as if their feet no longer belonged to the earth. The entire village gathered in the square, backs pressed against walls, eyes wide with terror. The spirits moved in a slow, circling rhythm, their empty eyes scanning the living. One by one, they stopped. until every ghostly gaze turned to the same girl, Nia. She stood trembling beneath the baobab tree, surrounded by a ring of cowrie shells and ashes. The elders had drawn every line of protection they could remember, but even they knew. The ancestors were not here to be stopped. They were here to finish what had been started. Her grandmother stepped forward, voice cracking. "Take me, leave her, she is only a child." But the spirit woman in the blue kented cloth, the one with the cracked face, shook her head slowly. She opened the drum, she danced our song. She must complete the dance. The villagers looked to the elders, then to Nia. No one moved. Nia did. She stepped forward, her breath shallow, her body swaying with the beat that now pulsed through the ground like a second heartbeat. She looked at the spirit woman, and this time, her voice didn't shake. "Teach me." There was a pause, then a nod, and the dance began. Not like before. No violence, no puppet strings. This time, Nia moved with purpose, matching the spirit's beat for beat. Her feet hit the ground in perfect time. Her arms told stories no living mouth could speak. She danced for the forgotten, for the buried, for the silenced. And as she moved, the spirits began to glow, faintly at first, then brighter, until their ash-gray skin shimmered like starlight. One by one, they began to vanish. Not fade, not dissolve. They smiled, and they were gone. The last to go was the woman in blue. She stepped close to Nia and placed a cold hand on her shoulder. "The drum remembers, but now, so do you." And then she too vanished. The mist lifted, the fire roared back to life, and the village was silent, not in fear, but in awe. Nia collapsed, exhausted, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her grandmother rushed to hold her. The elders helped her to her feet. The village would never be the same. Epilogue. Years later, people still tell the story of the girl who danced with the dead. They say she became the keeper of the drum, its guardian and interpreter. They say she taught new dances, ones that honored the ancestors, not feared them. And on nights when the moon is full and the wind is quiet, you can still hear faint drumming from the shrine at the edge of Kuta. Not a warning, not a curse, just a rhythm that remembers.